Welcome, everyone. Thank y'all for joining us. We're going to give folks a few more minutes to join in, but test out the chat box and tell us where you're joining from around the state, or if you're from out of state. We have quite a good group here, so we're interested to see who is joining us from different parts of the state or the country. Um, and we got 7:30 now. Um, but we'll give it another minute to give some stragglers to come on in. See, we've got Spartanburg, Somerville, Pawleys Island, Anderson. Let's see, Columbia. I'm reporting from Columbia. Let's see, Charlotte, North Carolina. There's North Carolina. Let's see, Fayetteville, Georgia. Awesome. Our neighboring states. Let's see. Brevard, North Carolina. Awesome. Beaufort, North Carolina. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started here. So welcome everybody to our Wild Webinar series. Thank y'all for joining us today. Just a common courtesy, we'll be recording this webinar, so it's going to be available on our YouTube channel, and your attendee microphones and cameras will be off, but y'all are welcome to ask questions in the chat box, and then we'll address them at the end. And so with that, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Savannah Jordan. I'm the Habitat Education Manager for the South Carolina Wildlife Federation. And we have a very special guest for our Wild Webinar series today, Richard Joyce. He's worked as a conservation biologist at the Xerces Society for invertebrate conservation since 2022. And he coordinates the Firefly Atlas project, collaborates with researchers, land managers, and community scientists, and compiles and creates tools and resources that drive firefly conservation efforts. Richard has surveyed for fireflies in 8 different counties in South Carolina, from the coast to the Blue Ridge. And before joining the Xerces Society, Richard worked at conservation nonprofits and agencies in Maine and South Carolina, including the Nature Conservancy, Maine Natural Areas Program, and Congaree National Park. He is currently based in Amherst, Massachusetts, and we're so grateful and super excited to have him joining us online to present about fireflies of South Carolina. So, like I said earlier, I'll be assisting with the logistics and monitoring the chat. And as I mentioned, y'all are muted and your cameras are off, but please feel free to use the chat box and ask your questions, and we'll get to them at the end. And make sure that you click the option for your questions to go to everyone. And so, yeah, with that, I invite y'all to sit back and join and enjoy the presentation. And thank you so much, Richard, for joining us. And I will let you take it away.
Thank you much, Savannah, and good evening, everyone. Let me just take a second to pull up my slides. Hope everyone can see that. Again, thank you, Savannah, and I am really grateful to the South Carolina Wildlife Federation for facilitating this opportunity to speak to you tonight about the lightning bugs of the Palmetto State. Although I'm now based in Massachusetts, I lived in Columbia, South Carolina for 2 years, and this was really where I began my career as a firefly researcher and conservationist. This May will mark my 6th year doing firefly surveys in the state. I've done lightning bug surveys on Wadmalaw Island in the Low Country, Table Rock State Park in the Blue Ridge, and many other sites around South Carolina. It was really amazing to see all the places that you all are joining from, as many of those places that I've been to and enjoyed spending time in. South Carolina is blessed with a wonderful diversity of lightning bugs, and it's a pleasure to get to speak with you tonight about their natural history and conservation. The organization that I work for is the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation. We're a science-based nonprofit that protects nature through the conservation of invertebrates and their habitats. We have five main programs which focus on endangered species, protection of pollinators in managed landscapes like farms, pesticide reduction, community engagement, and conservation policy. The butterfly pictured here on the left is the Xerces blue butterfly, the first insect known to go extinct in the US due to human causes. So it's both our namesake and a reminder of why we do the work that we do. As a nonprofit, Xerces is supported by an amazing community of members who make our work possible. So for any Xerces members watching today, I just want to say thank you. And if you'd like to become a member, you can do so on our website. And obviously, I hope that you're also supporting the South Carolina Wildlife Federation, which is doing amazing work in the state. So my presentation tonight has four parts. First, I'll give a quick Firefly 101. Next, I'll talk about the conservation status of fireflies in North America at kind of the big picture level. Then, I'll zoom into South Carolina to introduce you to some of the lightning bug species in your backyards and the natural spaces around the state. And I'll admit that this is probably my favorite part of the talk, just to introduce you to these bugs and connect some faces with their flashes. And finally, we'll explore the many ways that you can help fireflies through both research and conservation. So let's dive into fireflies. And tonight, I'll admit that I use the term fireflies because it's become a little bit more of the more widely used term. But I'll also use the term lightning bugs, as I know that is what these critters are often called in South Carolina and other parts of the Southeast. So Xerces first started working on fireflies because we kept hearing anecdotal reports of their declines, but few people seemed to be working in the realm of firefly conservation. And this was surprising given the near universal love that people seem to have for lightning bugs. If you've ever had the chance to watch them on a warm summer night, you know how magical they can be. Fireflies have long captured the human imagination, and they're frequently the focus of art, literature, and cultural traditions. The incredible nighttime displays have spurred a growing ecotourism sector, both in the United States and abroad. And in South Carolina, especially if you're in Columbia, I think you're well aware of their allure to folks from afar. Ecologically, lightning bugs are important components of community food webs, both as predators and prey. Fireflies are also charismatic, diverse, and well-loved, making them ideal flagship species for insect conservation. So, just starting with the very basics, what are fireflies? Fireflies are a type of beetle. Like ladybugs or scarabs, June bugs, they have front wings that are modified to protect their hind wings. I've heard beetles described as tanks that can turn into helicopters. As you can see in these images, the front wings are hardened, while the hind wings are quite delicate, and those are the ones they use to fly. A good way of distinguishing fireflies from some of their closest relatives and lookalikes, like soldier beetles and neck-winged beetles, is to pay attention to the proportions of the body parts, especially the head and the thorax, or the middle segment of the body. In fireflies, the head shield, or pronotum, is really broad, and it often hides the firefly's head, though not necessarily the eyes. And of course, if you see the underside of the fireflies, of the firefly, the light organs or lanterns can be another giveaway. But as you'll learn in this presentation, that's not always a sure sign that you're looking at a lightning bug. Fireflies are ancient. They go back much longer than humans. We know from amber fossils and DNA studies that fireflies were around at least 100 million years ago, lighting up the night when dinosaurs roamed the earth, which is pretty cool to imagine. Fireflies are also widespread, maybe even more than you imagined. There are 178 described species in the US and Canada, and more than 2,600 worldwide. And really, there are many more undescribed species, especially in the tropics, tropical parts of the world. As you can see from the black dots on this map, fireflies can be found in every state except Hawaii and in all but one Canadian territory. They're also found in a wide variety of habitats, from riparian woodlands to desert canyons and wet meadows. Now, you may be kind of curious, what's the deal with all those, California dots on the map? I didn't think that there were fireflies in California. Well, the key to this is that not all fireflies flash. There are three different categories of fireflies: flashing fireflies or lightning bugs, glowworm fireflies, and daytime dark fireflies. So flashing fireflies are the most commonly known. I don't really need to explain them. Glowworm fireflies are known for their flightless glowing females, like this hot pink individual in the middle here, the California pink glowworm. And daytime dark species are active during the day and don't use light as adults. Even though some adults don't light up, the immature stages of all fireflies do. Adult fireflies use bioluminescence for courtship, whereas larvae are using the light as a deterrent to potential predators. So in the fireflies that do flash, their light signals are a love song of sorts, a message that says, "Look, I'm the same species as you. Shall we make more fireflies?" Male fireflies emit what we call flash patterns, a somewhat rhythmic and predictable set of flashes. These flash patterns vary across species, with differences in timing, intensity, color, and movement through space. It's kind of like a song or a choreography. So this diagram illustrates the flash patterns of just a handful of species, and you can see the variety that exists, ranging from upward swooping J-shaped flashes to rapid orange flickers to flashes that come in sets of two. And if a female firefly is interested, she will shine her light in the male's direction, usually after a pause whose duration is characteristic of her species. Like insects like butterflies, fireflies go through four distinct life stages. They start out as tiny eggs laid in damp places. Think a mossy log or moist soil or fallen leaves. And after a couple weeks, the egg hatches into a larva. The larva's mission, the larva's mission is to eat, grow, and not dry out and not get eaten. So for most firefly species, this takes up the bulk of their life. Once they have grown enough and the weather is right, the larva will turn into a pupa, often in the soil, but not always, and it'll take a few more weeks to become an adult. Adults emerge and have one central goal: mate and make more fireflies. With a few exceptions, the adult phase is short and sweet, lasting less than a month. So I really like to showcase firefly larvae because this is what fireflies look like for most of their lives. Their armored bodies are well adapted to burrowing through soil, under logs, and navigating the forest floor, or the floor of a meadow or field. They have telescoping necks, kind of like a turtle, and sharp grooved mandibles like snake fangs. And we'll get to those adaptations, what they're used for, in just a little bit. Adult fireflies aren't the only life stage that produce light. Even in the diurnal dark fireflies, the eggs, larvae, and pupae will produce light as a warning signal. announcing that they are toxic and bad tasting to potential predators. And the larval stage of fireflies is when they carry out one of their important roles in the ecosystem. They are predators, feeding on snails, slugs, earthworms, and other soft-bodied critters. Honestly, it's still a big mystery what exactly many of these larval what the larvae of many species are doing, because they're just hard to study in the wild. But we do know that a larva that's hunting a snail, for example, will extend its head into a snail shell, inject it with a neurotoxin to paralyze it, and also inject digestive enzymes, and then slurp up some snail soup. There are also cases of multiple firefly larvae hunting down earthworms, like in a little pack, like a pack of wolves, and subduing the earthworm together. Fireflies' appetite for snails and slugs mean that they provide valuable pest control in certain farming systems, like rice paddies in parts of Asia. Sometimes I get asked whether fireflies are important food for birds or bats. And I think it's people are sometimes a little disappointed to hear that fireflies are probably not a major food for these groups. I mentioned previously that fireflies are toxic. They have toxic compounds in them similar to the steroids and compounds in things like monarch butterflies and toads. So most vertebrates generally avoid eating fireflies. Um, there's an interesting set of photos here. So on the left, there's a swamp sparrow that's caught a winter firefly, which is a daytime non-flashing firefly. But my guess is that this sparrow won't try to eat another one in the future. In the middle, you can see a close-up of winter firefly, and you can see there's that bead of whitish liquid on its back, and that's reflex bleeding. So it's giving potential predators a bitter taste of its toxins before they can even really chomp down. On the other hand, spiders, assassin bugs, and other predatory arthropods seem to enjoy eating fireflies no problem, and maybe they're not affected by the toxins or have some way of dealing with them. Another question I sometimes get is whether fireflies are pollinators. Um, and within insects, I understand that, the pollinators and things like bees get sort of disproportionate attention because we tend to all understand the value and importance of pollination, both in ecosystems and in agriculture. So fireflies will certainly visit flowers. Who doesn't like a bit of sweet nectar after all? And interestingly, many species of lightning bug can be found hanging out on milkweed flowers. This has been studied a little bit. However, we don't know any plants that really depend on lightning bugs for pollination, and we don't know how effective fireflies are at moving pollen from flower to flower and plant to plant. My guess is that compared to things like bees or moths, they're not playing as large of a role, but this is an area that could use a lot more study. So this wraps up my Fireflies 101, and I'm going to move on to the question of how fireflies are doing. What is their conservation status? So for many years, the general consensus among the public worldwide has seemed to be that lightning bugs are not as abundant as they once were. And declines have been documented in a few species in some places. However, here in the US, we simply lack the baseline data and systematic monitoring that's needed to paint a clear picture of population trends. It's not like with groups like birds or butterflies, where people have been going out in an organized fashion and doing surveys or counts for decades now, that those data are just simply missing for North American firefly species. But while quantitative data from population monitoring are basically completely absent for North American lightning bugs, there is shared concern between scientists and the public regarding the future of fireflies. Last summer, there was some social media buzz and viral TikTok videos about this being the last generation to see fireflies. And this wasn't really factual or nuanced. I was a little frustrated by it. It did strike a chord with many people because so many people report seeing fewer fireflies or not seeing fireflies at all in places where they used to. But I'm going to try to convey a little more of the complexity and the bigger picture behind these kind of flashy headlines that do have real concern behind them and a grain of truth. So are fireflies in trouble? 5 years ago, in 2021, Xerces Society and partners published IUCN Red List assessments for 132 North American firefly species. The IUCN Red List is an international standardized framework for assessing extinction risk for species with categories along a spectrum from least concern to critically endangered. It is non-regulatory and completely separate from the federal endangered species list or the state level threatened and endangered species list. So it doesn't come with regulation or resources necessarily. Um, so what did we find? We found that about a third of these lightning bugs are doing okay and are categorized as least concern. So these are often species that are widespread, fairly adaptable to human activities, and there don't seem to be too many signs of declines or extirpations. Um, then we found that a significant portion of fireflies, somewhere between 1/6 and 1/3 of firefly species, are either threatened or possibly threatened with extinction. So definitely threatened with a sixth of species. And then, unfortunately, for over half of the species that we assessed, we lacked sufficient data to know their conservation status. And just to give you an example, a couple weeks ago, I was traveling to do firefly surveys in South Florida, and one of the species that we were looking for, found in pineland habitats in South Florida, was last recorded in the late 1960s. We don't know if it has disappeared or simply not enough people were looking for it. We didn't find it 2 weeks ago, but with just 2 nights of searches, it's hard to really know what's going on with this species. So why do some fireflies seem to be at risk? Um, Fireflies face many threats, but in the United States, the largest appear to be habitat loss, light pollution, pesticide use, and climate change. And just to explain a couple of these, light pollution is more and more understood to be a threat to insects generally and other wildlife. And its effects on fireflies can be manyfold. It can be lethal attraction. So fireflies end up, um, you know, spending all their time at lights and not and getting zapped by heat or getting nabbed by a predator. But it can also just interfere with their reproduction because they're using light signals to communicate with mates. Excess light, artificial light, can really interfere with this process, and there's a growing body of research showing that. And when it comes to climate change, that's a big topic. But the increased incidence and intensity of drought and sea level rise are two kind of manifestations of climate change that are concerning, particularly for coastal firefly species in the case of sea level rise, but also drought kind of everywhere around the country. So, I don't want to give too much doom and gloom there. I'm going to transition now to getting to know some South Carolina lightning bug species. Um, there are about 30 species of lightning bugs that have been recorded in South Carolina, and I think that number could go up with further study just in the next few years if more people are out paying attention and doing surveys. So these 30 species include flashing fireflies, daytime dark fireflies, and glowworm fireflies. And I'm gonna show you vignettes of 8 species illustrating some of this wonderful diversity and also a range of threat levels. So some lightning bugs that I'm really not worried about at all, and some that are a high priority for conservation efforts. If we look at South Carolina lightning bugs by red list category, you can see that they are a mix. So the good news is that over half are in the least concern category. That's species that are fairly widespread. They're fine. They're not particularly specialists in the types of habitats that they use. Um, they seem to be doing okay. We're not as worried about those. Um, then we have a large chunk that either haven't been evaluated because there's been so little study on them, or they were found to be data deficient. We just don't have enough information to make a call about their conservation status. And then we have two that are in the endangered category, and I'll get to those as part of the vignettes. Something worth noting is that even the species that are marked least concern could very well be in decline. We just don't have the baseline data or monitoring data to show it. And because they're found in so many places, they're a lower priority, or they would be a lot lower priority even if they were in decline. So the first species to feature here, the spring treetop flasher. This is a forest dweller, and it's the first lightning bug to blink each year in much of the eastern United States. In South Carolina, this species has been observed flashing as early as February, with activity peaking in March and April. We're kind of at the tail end of the season right now. And the fun actually begins before the adults flash, as you can look for the larvae preparing to pupate in the grooves of tree bark in the early spring. The next species I'd like to feature is the Big Dipper, named for its relatively large size, large for a lightning bug, it's all relative, um, and the upward swooping trajectory of the male courtship flashes. So this is not a species whose future keeps me up at night. It is remarkably adaptable to human-altered landscapes and is widespread across the eastern US, including in suburban lawns. Um, it's found across South Carolina, but it seems to be much less common below the fall line, which I am kind of intrigued by. And I don't know if that's just because there are fewer people submitting community science observations in the coastal plain, or whether they're actually less common there. And I took this photo of the firefly flashes in my in-laws' backyard in Louisville, Kentucky. The whimsically nicknamed snappy single sink, or Photurus frontalis, if you call it by its scientific name, has become something of a celebrity in South Carolina. This is thanks to its breathtaking displays of synchronizing males that draw hundreds of visitors to Congaree National Park each spring. The common name, coined by firefly expert Lynn Faust, refers to the flash pattern, which consists of quick, single flashes repeated about once a second, with males flashing in unison, like an audience clapping to the beat. It's become so popular that the park, Congaree National Park, now uses a lottery system to limit the number of visitors, ensuring both the well-being of the firefly population and a safe and enjoyable visitor experience. While its flight season is brief, this firefly has untapped potential as a driver of rural tourism in South Carolina, and something that we may touch on at the end of the park. And I do want to emphasize that this species, though Congaree National Park is the most well-known place to see it, it is found in a large, many parts of South Carolina. So I've found it as close to the Blue Ridge as the Travelers Rest area in Greenville County, and it's also found closer to the coast in bottomland hardwood forests and other mesic hardwood forests. The sidewinder firefly, or Photinus brimlei, is an example of a species that is least concerned on the red list, but is nowhere near as common or widespread as species like the Big Dipper. These photos were taken a few years ago in Kings Mountain State Park, right near the North Carolina border, on a night when we saw over a half dozen species in just a few hours. And this was the first known record for the species in South Carolina. Our most exciting find of the night was finding the flightless female, which you can see here on the right, which was glowing from the ground while males were painting these yellow streaky flashes at about waist height in the forest understory. Blue ghost fireflies are some of the most mysterious and enchanting fireflies in South Carolina. In the spring and early summer, male blue ghost fireflies slowly drift through forest understories while giving a continuous glow. It's captured in long exposure images, these glows look like trails of green spaghetti winding through the forest. Females are flightless and pale, and they glow too, a pinprick of green light on the forest floor. While best known from shady forests of the Blue Ridge Mountains, blue ghost fireflies are actually found across South Carolina, including on the coastal plain and the Piedmont regions. So I know many folks in South Carolina who would actually go, maybe travel from Columbia or elsewhere to go up to the mountains of North Carolina to see blue ghosts. And yet, this species is actually flying under the radar and just unnoticed in various parts of the Palmetto State. There's a lesser known cousin of the blue ghost, nicknamed the foxfire ghost or Piedmont ghost, that was described just a couple years ago, given a scientific name and kind of made known to science. And a native of Little Mountain in Newberry County, Elena Ergel, is currently working to untangle the mysteries of ghost fireflies as a group as part of her studies at Western Carolina University and in collaboration with some folks at the University of Georgia as well. I'm really excited to see what comes of these studies in the next couple years. So earlier I mentioned that there are two red list endangered lightning bugs in South Carolina. And the pointy-lobed firefly is one of these two species. It's incredibly rare, known from just two sites in South Carolina and a few more scattered across the Southeast, up as far as kind of southern Ohio. But it's also really hard to identify. The name actually refers to the shape of the male genitalia, not something that a casual observer will notice. The places where I've managed to see it in South Carolina have been in Greenville County and Pickens County, and it was first described from Pisgah, the vicinity of Pisgah Mountain, in North Carolina. This last species that I'm featuring, the loopy 5 firefly, is the species that I've spent the most time searching for and in some ways thinking about in South Carolina. The loopy five firefly has a kind of a silly name, but it describes the flash pattern well. In May and June, over certain ponds and marshes in the southeast, the loopy five fireflies give a quick series of flashes and glows while bobbing erratically. The number of pulses can range, but it's often kind of five to seven blinks. And this is a firefly whose flash pattern is distinctive and recognizable, but whose physical appearance is so similar to related species that specimens without associated flash behavior would not be distinguishable. It's kind of a great example of why to study lightning bugs effectively, we need to record aspects of their behavior and kind of study them the way we might study birdsong and not just catch them and put them in a collection without that contextual information. So the discovery of the loopy five firefly by renowned firefly expert Jim Lloyd in 1986 is intertwined with the fragility of its populations and its habitats. The Pickens County site of the population that Dr. Lloyd first studied in 1986 was bulldozed just 3 days after it was found. Dr. Lloyd and others revisited this site over the years, but the species was never found there again. I actually visited the site in late May 2024, and we saw other species of lightning bugs at the site, but no loopy five fireflies. And in all of Jim Lloyd's life, only two other locations were found. Um, he passed away in 2020. Loopy five fireflies are now known to occur in at least 5 locations in the upstate of South Carolina, including at 3 state parks and a university nature preserve. And there are a few additional sites with observations that need some follow-up for confident confirmation. So it's great news. This species is not as rare as we once thought, but its habitat, these small, mucky wetlands on relatively small streams, are not particularly well represented on conservation lands or protected at all, and are still threatened by destruction and degradation. I also want to share just a couple kind of South Carolina firefly mysteries of species that we either, might occur in South Carolina or do occur in South Carolina, but we know very little about. So one mystery that I'm curious about is whether we have the Smokies synchronous firefly, Photinus carolinus, in South Carolina. This is really more of an Appalachian species, and we know it's found in the mountains of North Carolina. It's found all the way up to kind of western Pennsylvania. But any populations in South Carolina are not well documented, and it's not currently on the list of species for South Carolina. So if you have any leads, I would be very curious to solve this mystery. Another species, the nickname the shadow chaser or Photinus umbratus, is an example of a data deficient species on the red list. So there's a single known record from South Carolina. It was collected in Charleston in 1932, and no other records, definitive records. Just last year, some biologists and naturalists caught and photographed a firefly in the Columbia area that may be this species, but we need many more people paying closer attention and sharing their findings. And you can see from this kind of rough range map that this is really a coastal plain species. So the Gulf Coast, Florida, these, very low-lying sandy habitats. So next, I would like to just talk about ways to show lightning bugs some love. So we've talked about the amazing diversity of lightning bugs that South Carolina has, and we've talked about the threats that fireflies face as a group in the United States. And the good news is that there are lots of ways, small and large, that we can protect these species and ensure that we can enjoy them for generations to come. So one way to contribute is by collecting and sharing firefly data through community science. I coordinate Xerces Society community science project called Firefly Atlas. And this is a project to map and document firefly species in the US and Canada. We accept data for firefly species in both of these countries, and participants can either submit incidental sightings of fireflies or preferably conduct surveys aimed at either a particular species or just documenting the full suite of species found at a site. So we would love to continue to light up this map and fill in gaps in our understanding of lightning bugs, where they're found, when they're found, which species. There are many questions that can be answered just by having more people with curiosity and passion for lightning bugs out there, learning to document them in a way that is verifiable and usable. So to effectively survey for and document lightning bugs, you do need a few basic pieces of equipment, including a red filtered headlamp to preserve your night vision and minimize impacts to the fireflies, a net for catching fireflies, a camera for photographing the bugs up close, a thermometer to record the air temperature, and some sort of container to hold the firefly while you photograph it. When I first started out doing firefly surveys, I was using plastic petri dishes, but in recent years, I've transitioned to using clear sandwich bags. Easier to obtain, easier to carry around without breaking, and they're great for getting photos of the underside or the belly of lightning bugs once you've caught them. And we have a survey data sheet that's available on the Firefly Atlas website. Um, Participating in Firefly community science projects is not just about the data. It's also about the community of knowledgeable, passionate individuals who are ready to champion firefly conservation in the places where they live. And surveying in groups, making it a social activity, is good for safety, motivation, and everyone's learning process. So next, I'm going to talk about a few simple things we can all do to help fireflies thrive. And to do this, it's important to understand the basic needs of fireflies. So in addition to protection from pesticides and other potentially negative impacts to their habitat, fireflies need four main things: moisture, food, shelter, and for many species, dark nights. So moisture ensures that fireflies and their prey do not dry out. Food is especially critical at the larval stage. So remember, we're talking about slugs, snails, and earthworms. And shelter in the form of fallen leaves, underground burrows, rocks, rotting logs, and native vegetation is needed year-round during all of their life stages. And dark nights are important to species that are active at night and use their bioluminescent courtship signals for finding and choosing a mate. So a simple act is just to leave the leaves where and when you can. So fallen leaves help retain moisture and provide shelter for fireflies and their prey. You can see in this image the larva of a spring treetop flasher enjoying the moisture and fallen leaves on the forest floor. So easing up just a little bit on yard cleanup can mean more moisture, more food, and more shelter for fireflies, and especially their babies. I want to spend a little time talking about mowing, as I think there could be some sort of mixed messaging around this topic. So, mowing in moderation may actually help some firefly species by maintaining habitats that are open and dominated by herbaceous plants rather than woody vegetation. Um, some fireflies just prefer forests, so lawns are only going to support a handful of species. But if you do have open grassy areas. The best thing to do is just mow when the fireflies are least active. Maybe if you're able to maintain it as a meadow, um, mow in the fall or winter after a frost. Um, I know you don't get that many frosts in some parts of South Carolina. And if you need to mow during the growing season, say this is someplace that you need to keep a little tidier, don't cut it too short because that will dry out the soil. And you can use a flushing bar and avoid kind of late afternoon mowing to prevent harm to the lightning bugs. Planting a diverse suite of native plants is going to do things like provide shelter, maintain soil moisture, and feed the creatures that firefly larvae eat. It can be a little frustrating for gardeners who really want to know what to plant because fireflies don't use native plants directly for food in the way that a monarch butterfly or a bumblebee might. But they are a vital part of the habitat, and we also want to support all different types of wildlife, not just fireflies. Whenever possible, eliminating and avoiding pesticide use is an important step because these substances can not only harm fireflies, but also the soft-bodied prey that the larvae are eating. And I don't think anyone applies pesticides with the intent of killing fireflies, but fireflies can become collateral damage when pesticides are applied for landscaping or mosquito control purposes. And Xerces has lots of great resources to help transition away from pesticides. Nighttime active fireflies need dark nights, and eliminating artificial light at night is the best thing that you can do to help them. However, there are cases where light is just needed or it's practical for safety reasons. So in those cases, you can consider reducing its impact by using motion detectors rather than keeping lights on all the time. Make sure that all the lighting is well shielded and low in height, so it has a really targeted effect, just putting the light in the path or on your porch and not letting that light spill out into the shrubs and the forest or the field. Um, and actually keeping curtains closed at night during the firefly mating season can really limit the amount of indoor light that spills out as well. If you really want to go all out, you can also swap your bulbs for dim red ones. Red is the color of light that seems to impact fireflies the least, and that holds for other types of wildlife as well. Finally, there's a growing movement to establish firefly sanctuaries. These are places that put all these pieces together, protecting fireflies and their habitats, studying and documenting the lightning bug species, and helping people learn and enjoy these marvelous creatures. So this photo shows volunteers dressed up as the different firefly life stages at a firefly sanctuary in Northwest Arkansas. There's a growing network of sites doing really inspiring work, and it includes private reserves, state parks, city parks, land trust preserves, an interesting mix of places. If you're excited to dig in more to learning about fireflies and their conservation, the Xerces Society and the Firefly Atlas have many resources available online that you can download. Some of them can also be requested if you have say, a community event and you'd like to give out firefly conservation brochures at a environmental education initiative or something like that. Do, if you're interested, track down some of these publications. I want to say thank you to the many wonderful institutions and individuals that have helped me in my journey of getting to know and helping to protect the lightning bugs in South Carolina, including South Carolina State Parks, DNR, Congaree National Park, which is where I got my first taste of firefly community science. The wonderful outreach volunteers with the Xerces Society, Jory, Brad, and Caroline, and the South Carolina Wildlife Federation for the collaboration that we've been embarking on this year. It's been really a pleasure and exciting. And then there are a few other folks that have just gone out and surveyed with me or taught me things about the lightning bugs in South Carolina. So thank you to them. And with that, thank you for your time and attention, and I'm happy to take questions. I also very briefly just want to um, I'll leave this slide up here. There's an exciting initiative with many partners taking place in the Columbia area to make progress on rural firefly tourism and kind of expand opportunities beyond just Congaree National Park. So if you're interested in this initiative, the contact information is up here, and I encourage you to reach out if you would like to get involved. So thank you, and I'm happy to take, I think we have a few minutes for questions, comments, stories. I am all ears.
Yes, thank you so much, Richard. That was incredible. Thank you so much for teaching us all about the fireflies of South Carolina and how we can do our part to help keep our summer nights aglow here in South Carolina and all over the country. We're so grateful for you sharing your knowledge and expertise and all the wonderful information. So yes, we will take questions now, and I will go ahead and see which ones we have to start. Let's see. Um, we had some people commenting about pesticides. Yeah, how can we educate on how to control mosquito populations while preserving firefly populations? That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And I think there's definitely more research that can be done on this. But I
Mhm.
think that uh, I have some awesome colleagues at Xerces who work with communities to develop more uh, kind of ecologically sustainable mosquito management plans. And a lot of it boils down to using adulticides, so the insecticides that target adult mosquitoes, like that should be the last resort, not a repeated maintenance thing. So really focusing on reducing the standing water around houses and toys and
Mhm.
buckets and that sort of thing. Um, tackling mosquitoes at the source is a big one, and then you can also use some much more targeted and friendly methods that are like using types of bacteria that you can put little pellets into to standing water to prevent those mosquito larvae from developing. But it's a real challenge. Nobody likes to be bitten by mosquitoes, and the fear of disease is also it's a real one, and we need to take it seriously. So I think, but people also want to have lightning bugs around. So meeting people where they're at and trying to just slowly move the needle, I think is more effective than coming on coming on super strong, even if we feel passionate about it.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Thank you. So our next question is there a time and place that are especially good for seeing fireflies? For example, like after a rainstorm or in a marshy estuarine area?
Yeah, I think that the after a rainstorm and when the temperature is nice and warm will be times when fireflies are, happy because they're not worried about getting dried out. And when it's warm, they'll also it's easier for that chemical reaction to happen quickly, so you'll have really fantastic displays. If your aim is to see multiple species, I think that edges of habitat. So if there are places where you have sort of an open sort of, field area and forest and a wetland, um, that's an awesome place to see multiple species. And a lot of times, like rivers will have that, especially if you have like beaver dams. I think beaver wetlands are awesome places for fireflies. Um, and was there a second part to that question? Um,
Um, the timing. Is there a specific timing that is good for seeing
timing.
them?
Yeah, I think that um, you'll see the most species in sort of mid-June, I would say, in South Carolina. But really, if you want to see all the species in an area, you want to start early and go, past Labor Day. So it might be as early as March or February in some places. So just get out often and regularly. And also in terms of the timing within the night, there are some species that are just displaying at dusk and some species that come out once it's dark. So you'll get the most diversity if you start around sunset and go for a couple hours. So, 2.5 hours to get that diversity.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. Our next one is it looks like someone had asked about the Firefly Atlas and if it picks up observations from iNaturalist, but from what I understand, they don't talk to each other. Um, isn't that right?
We do have a map that will pull in iNaturalist observations uh, through the global biodiversity information facility. So, but it doesn't get updated that often. I am active on iNaturalist. I realize that there are many people who have never heard of the Firefly Atlas, but are still contributing great data. And I do try to help people identify things on iNaturalist. The Firefly Atlas is just trying to fill some other gaps. So, like collecting the data where you go out and search for something and don't find it, like that's really important information that's you just don't get from iNaturalist. But yeah, iNaturalist is very much on our radar, even though the integration is not super tight.
Right. Yeah. And a few people were replying to that like Firefly Atlas checks on the iNaturalist data but doesn't directly import it. So like the Atlas requires more information like temperature, moon phase, flash pattern, type of habitat and things. So
Yeah.
it's a lot more specific. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Our next one got a lot of really great questions. Um, let's see, how can we start a local group or like a local, I'm assuming that that means maybe like a local um, group to um,
To do
help with
surveys or
conservation
walks.
or do surveys, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that, approaching one barrier can be access to habitats at night in a safe way, in a responsible way. So if there are kind of nature centers or an arboretum or other, maybe it's a wildlife management area where you have a relationship with the folks who manage it, and you can be a trusted entity to them. I think that's a great place to start. And then yeah, just I think getting other folks who are interested out there, making sure you're making it a safe and enjoyable experience. Um, I know there are there are various groups around the country that are doing this. It's compared to like butterfly counts, it's still very new. But um, if you see that someone else um, asked about a way to contact me, and I apologize for not putting that on a slide. But um, Richard.Joyce at Xerces.org is my email address, or fireflyatlas at Xerces.org. Um, Savannah, it looks like I actually only have host and panelist chat access, so thank you for putting that in the chat. Um, but really, if you just go to Firefly Atlas and find the contact us information, that will connect you with me.
Yes, yes, and I did put that in the chat there for anybody that and we will also send out a follow-up email with our information as well. Um, all right, well, we are at 8:30 and we still have some questions left. So we can we can keep going with questions if you'd like, Richard. Or we
I'm
can follow up with questions.
I can give another 10 minutes, but you're the host,
Okay.
Savannah. So if you want to send people to my email inbox, that's okay too.
Okay, let me just do like two more. Let's see. Let's see. A lot of thank yous, great presentation. Oh, how can we tell a male versus a female firefly? Is there a way to do that? It's a good question.
Yeah, so the most, if you're looking out into the forest or field, many cases, most of the blinking that you're seeing is going to be males because they are really trying to advertise their presence and
Hmm.
desirability to females. So that's one way, just the flash behavior, but that can be a little iffy, not so reliable. There are exceptions to it. So if you catch the lightning bug and it's a flashing firefly, um, the females tend to have smaller light organs, so they don't fill the entire segment, and they'll sometimes have fewer light organs as well. So it depends a little bit on the firefly genus, but that is a good way to tell. Males, this is more subtle, but males tend to have bigger eyes as well. But that's a relative thing.
Yeah, cool. Um, and so let's do our last question. You mentioned four elements of flashing: time, intensity, movement, and what was the other one?
Um, Color, I think, is the one that I think I
Color. Mm,
mentioned.
okay.
That can range. The blue ghost is actually green. It can look a little blue, but if you look at it up close, it's green. So firefly light can range from kind of an orangish amber color to yellow to green. And yeah, that can help you make an educated guess to the genus of the firefly if you're not able to catch it up close. Um, yeah.
That's so interesting about the colors. I had no idea that they were different colors. The green one was really interesting one too. I usually think of them as like the bright yellow.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Bright yellow tends to work better at dusk, when
mm,
it's contrasts more with like the green leafy backgrounds. And
yeah.
then once it's
Mhm.
nighttime, green as well is good for just going, I think, further distances and being more visible. But it's not as good when there's that green leaves being reflected.
Right, yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Richard. Lots of really great questions from our attendees. Um, if there's any other questions or anything that we missed, feel free to reach out to us. Um, I will pull up my screen to show you guys our slideshow here. Let's see. Okay. And this is our general email. So feel free to send us an email and ask any questions. But we'd also love to know how we did. So um, this QR code will take you to a short feedback form. If y'all wouldn't mind filling that out, that helps us know how you like this webinar. And we hope you all enjoyed it and learned something new. I definitely learned a lot of new things. So I'm really excited to get out and survey some fireflies coming up soon. And so we're super proud to be able to bring these webinars to the public on various topics. And these are all on our YouTube channel. This is going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel so you can rewatch it, share it with your friends. And if you did enjoy this webinar, we'd love to hear from you. And we also greatly appreciate any financial support. So please consider making a donation to the South Carolina Wildlife Federation so we can continue offering these free webinars. Like I said, we'll send out a follow-up email with information about how to connect with us and Richard and a link to this webinar. Our next webinar is going to be on July 7th at noon, where we're going to have Dr. David Coyle with Clemson University presenting about invasive species, what they are, how they got here, why we get them, and common ones in the southeastern U.S. So you won't want to miss that. Registration will be coming soon. And thank you all again so much for joining and attending as a part of our Wild Webinar series. Thank you so much, Richard. It's been wonderful, a great evening learning about fireflies. And we hope to see you guys on the next one. Y'all have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Get out and see some lightning bugs tonight if you can.
Yes. All right. Bye, everybody.